as mentioned in the previous exercise, the default font, at least for me inside my browser, appears to be either Times or Times New Roman. Hence, again, the formatting that I'm getting on the heading 1s and the heading 2s and throughout my basic paragraphs here. The paragraphs that don't have any formatting applied to them. Now, I'm not 100% sure if it's Times or Times New Roman. If I really wanted to know, I'd have to dig into my browser preferences. And as a quick side note, whether you know it or not, the end user, the person who's browsing through your website, can actually go and change their default settings inside their browser. So you really don't have a whole lot of control unless you go and specify things like fonts and sizes and colors and things like this. So the next thing that I want to show you is I want to show you how to set, I suppose, what you could call a document-wide font. In other words, I don't want to use the default font of Times or Times New Roman. I want to go and specify my own font. Now, there's a very difficult way to do this, and there's a very easy way to do this. I will tell you about the very difficult way to do this for your own knowledge, and then I'll show you how to do the very easy way. So I'm going to flip back over to my code here. Here's the hard way. What I could do, if I were a thinking kind of guy, is I could take what we've already done here, this font-family Monaco, this inline formatting. I could take that and copy it and then drop it into the opening tag of all of my H1s and all of my H2s and also all of my paragraphs all the way throughout my entire document, thus changing the typeface for all H1s, all H2s, and all paragraphs. That might sound like a good idea, but it would be immensely tedious. So let's say, for example, we go and do that, and let's say we change the font to, Arial. And then later on, our boss or our coworker or our client comes back and says, hey, can we change all the text on the page? Can we change it to Tahoma instead? Or could we use Verdana instead? That means you'd have to go and change each one individually, one at a time, all the way throughout the entire document. That would take forever, right? So that's no good. That's the bad way to do it. Here's the fast way to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find the opening body tag for my document. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in some inline CSS into the opening body tag. Go ahead and find your opening body tag and throw in your style attribute, style equals open quote. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, then let's go ahead and type in font-family, :space. Now, as far as the actual font that you specify, I will leave that entirely up to you. You could use monospace if you want, or you could use Arial, or you could try Georgia, whatever you want. I'm going to stick with the good old trusty Verdana, followed by a semicolon, and then I'm going to close my quote, just like that. Now, what I'm saying here is I'm saying, hey, any content that falls within the body, and we already know that any content that's rendered inside the browser appears inside the body, right? I'm saying take all that content and make it look like that. Okay, so essentially setting a single font for the entire document. Let's save up our work, flip back over to the browser and refresh. And there we go. There's our change. It's a slight change, but notice it no longer looks like Times or Times New Roman. It now looks more like Arial, or specifically Verdana, of course, or a sans serif font. There's no tails, there's no decorations on the actual characters themselves anymore. Okay, so that's how you can set a document-wide font. Pretty cool. Now, at any time, I could head back to my code and I could make my change. Oh, instead of Verdana, I actually wanted to use monospace. Something like this. Save it up, back over to the browser, and refresh. And there's my change, right? Something like that. It makes it really fast, really easy to make your changes. Change it to Georgia, refresh, there we go, right? So this is a much faster, much more manageable way to work. I'm going to go back to Verdana here. I'll leave it up to you, though. You can certainly spend a moment and experiment here and try changing your fonts document-wide here. It's wonderful stuff. Now, before I let you go, though, I'm going to bounce one idea off of you here. And that is that I'm actually showing you two different things here, whether you're aware of it or not. First of all, I'm showing you how to change the font face that's used throughout the entire document. That's wonderful, and that's the real purpose of this exercise. The second thing that I'm showing you is much more subtle. It's a seed that I want to plant early on and it's something that we're going to be seeing throughout the rest of our training series together, and that is the cascading effect of CSS, the C in CSS. So what I'm talking about here is, notice that all of the text throughout my entire document is now changed to Verdana, except the first paragraph. Why is the first paragraph different? Because, of course, we went and told that first paragraph to go and look like this, font family Monaco. We told it to look different, right? So in other words, this is the cascading effect, a very basic, a very introductory level look at the cascading effect of CSS. Keep this idea in mind, and we'll be seeing it over and over and over again. And then eventually we'll get to a point where I'll just full on address it and we'll talk about it and I'll show you some different examples. But keep this idea in mind. In the meantime, have some fun, experiment with your fonts, and I'll catch up with you in just a bit.